What did you have for breakfast? Or for lunch? You often hear it said, you are what you eat. Forget your waistline for a moment, because the reality is, you also think as well as you eat. Our brain needs two things to stay alive: oxygen and glucose, and it needs them continuously. So much so that a very brief interruption to the supply of oxygen to the brain can lead to unconsciousness. You may even faint if your heart misses just one beat. An interruption to the supply of glucose, on the other hand, takes a bit longer, but the results are the same. The brain really is an incredibly greedy organ. It needs a continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients to perform. In fact, while the brain constitutes just 2% of body mass, it uses 20% of its energy. And that's under normal restful conditions. When we are cognitively challenged, for example in a demanding problem-solving meeting, it can use 25 to 30% of the available energy. Now, unfortunately, you won't lose weight if you concentrate harder, but we do know this. For your brain to perform at its best, it needs to be properly and continuously fueled with oxygen and glucose. And if it isn't, brain performance drops and problems become harder to solve. Not only does the performing brain need to be fueled continuously, it also needs to be fueled at a steady rate. The brain hates abrupt changes, like high spikes of glucose followed by a trickle. The brain much prefers a slow, steady and strong stream of glucose, topped up in regular intervals throughout the day. So, how do we ensure our brains get an optimized supply of fuel for better performance? Glucose is a carbohydrate, and it can come in many forms. Some carbohydrates have glucose, and other forms of sugars, very loosely stacked, easy to break into their smaller parts. We call these refined carbs, where the body doesn't have to work hard to release the sugars. The result? High volumes of glucose and other sugars become immediately available in the bloodstream, feeding the brain with spikes of glucose rather than a steady stream. The brain works hard to use this overload of glucose. But then, as the glucose swiftly fades away, the brain begins to crave more glucose and even to underperform. Luckily for your brain, there are also carbs with complex structures, called unrefined carbs. With these, the body has to work harder and longer to release the sugars. The result? Smaller amounts of glucose become available to the brain for much longer, providing the steady stream of fuel the brain needs to perform at its best. Include these unrefined carbs in your diet, also called low GI carbohydrates, where GI stands for glycemic index. Refined carbs are known as high GI carbohydrates. For your organization or your team to perform at their best, do whatever you can to ensure their brains are continuously fueled with low GI carbs. Now let's consider the importance of nutrition for the brain's structural integrity. It may help to think of the brain as a highly complex and active machine with millions of microscopic parts, all working together as one system. It has a clear directive: stay alive, survive, and ultimately thrive. And it has energy in the form of fuel to accomplish this. But who looks after the maintenance of the billions of parts of this machine? What does the service plan look like? Fortunately, the brain has its own inbuilt maintenance and repair division. Worn-out parts, like old proteins, are broken down in a special maintenance area and dropped outside the brain cells as toxic waste to be transported down the brain gutters and removed out of the system. At the same time, new proteins are continuously formed. The whole system works brilliantly. Even the repair systems are well developed. But danger lurks. The same oxygen that gives us life also threatens to take it away. When oxygen is burned in the cells to provide energy, it can also form very toxic byproducts called oxygen radicals that kill cells. So the brain has a well-designed system that protects the cells from oxygen as it is burnt up. In time, and under stressful conditions, these radicals leak into the cells where they are damaged and can die. Fortunately, there are substances, chemicals that we find in food, that work against this process, protecting brain cells against the damaging effects of oxygen. We call these antioxidants. And today we know of a whole host of foods that contain antioxidants. We should include these in our daily diet to ensure structural integrity of the brain and to enhance brain performance well into old age. Unfortunately, over time, our modern diet can also damage the structure and performing capacity of the brain. One known mechanism is called neuroinflammation. Substances we ingest can cause an inflammatory response in the brain. This happens at a micro level where very small areas of inflammation develop. While this can recover on its own, if we develop more of these very small but damaging areas, then in time they will contribute to reduced brain performance capacity, and can even contribute to the development of conditions that are called dementias and other neurodegenerative conditions. One of the more damaging inflammatory substances, called advanced glycated ends, or AGE, is found in deep-fried foods. Nutrition is a foundational driver of both short and long-term brain performance. Typically, we underestimate the brain's need for continuous fuel, especially when we are cognitively challenged, and we don't do nearly enough to preserve the structural integrity of our brains. In short, your hungry brain is fueled by oxygen and glucose. It craves a steady stream of glucose. The best way to deliver this and ensure optimal brain performance is through unrefined carbs, or low GI carbohydrates, that deliver not one great burst of glucose, but a steady stream of fuel for much longer. Your brain is a wonderfully complex structure, but under constant stress, the process of burning oxygen may damage your cells. Again, the cure lies with what you eat. Food rich in antioxidants help protect the structural integrity of the brain. What you eat can also either protect your brain from neuroinflammation or promote it. Over time, this contributes to conditions like dementia. Now that's food for thought.